how would President-elect Donald Trump's proposed tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China affect U.S. inflation and the purchasing power of American households, especially for the working class family?
First of all, it's interesting to see that these tariffs against Canada and Mexico are being imposed despite the fact that there's a trade agreement between the three countries. So this is being used as a political tool to get to other objectives, which is, as you said, the curb the drug trade between the countries. Now, what does, of course, a trade is negative for all countries involved. And it'll be interesting to see how this affects inflation, because without a doubt, rising tariffs, especially in a country like the US, which is very dependent on imports, particularly from China, Mexico, and Canada, as three largest trading partners, will cause additional inflation in the country at a time when the Federal Reserve is finally able to reduce inflation. So what will this do to interest rates, inflation? There's a big question mark there, but without a doubt, I see that this will be inflationary.
Okay, so, sir, you talked about the idea that a trade war would be dangerous for these countries, but also how significant will the disruptions of this thing happen to the global supply chains, and especially in the tech sector, if these tariffs are implemented, other that are opposing the tariffs?
Well, as you know, the United States and China are the two largest economies in the world. So when they are engaged in a trade war, you will see some obstacles to the supply chains. And as you know from our previous experience with COVID, how delicate supply chains are. So any disruption in, say, the U.S. versus China will cause disruptions in supply chains throughout the world. So I think the other countries are watching this closely and see how it develops.
Okay, well, sir, what about how tariffs complicate the existing trade agreements between the US, Mexico, and Canada? Could this complicate matters between these countries?
Uh, it clearly violates the trade agreement between Canada and Mexico. There's, of course, the U.S. is dependent on trade flow between these countries, especially with Mexico on the manufacturing sector. So I think that that Canada and Mexico, if they cannot resolve this before Trump implements these policies, they will have to file a claim with the World Trade Organization.
Sir, could we see some sort of shift in global manufacturing as companies look for other alternative markets than the US market, since, President-elect Trump is deciding to impose tariffs on other countries? Will other countries also try to find other markets?
It's not so easy to find other markets, and the U.S. is by far the largest market for goods, and this is why China and the U.S. are the largest trading partners amongst each other because of this. So, the trade war, it depends on how long it lasts. If it lasts a few months, if it lasts a year, I don't see it having any major long-term effects. If it lasts longer, then yes, of course, you will see major shifts. But in the short term, I don't see any changes. I see matters being trying to be resolved politically and trying to be resolved without having great effects on either economy.
You talked about the idea, that trade wars, depending on how long they last, it may affect supply chain and all of that. But both China and Canada have also indicated they may retaliate against these tariffs. What do you think are the consequences or the likely consequences of such retaliatory action?
Well, similar to what we saw last time Trump was president, he started a trade war with China, and of course it caused escalation in raising tariffs on an increasing amount of goods on both sides. And of course it was negative to both sides. And we can say that the U.S. benefited from this because what it caused and what Trump was trying to do was to get more U.S. manufacturing companies to manufacture back in the U.S. And I think we saw some success, and we saw some success in having other countries, especially in the tech sector, Samsung, for example, Samsung during this time.
Effects of these tariffs without jeopardizing the intended goals of addressing issues like, illegal migration and drug trafficking? Because you said that the reason for these tariffs are basically unrelated to actual trade.
Yeah, the primary objective is to try to tackle the huge illegal immigration into the U.S. and of course the drug trade. And as we saw, trying to resolve this politically is taking a long time, and I think Trump has seen this as a frustration, and he wants to resolve matters quickly. So of course he resolves as well as drug trafficking. So I think this is the main objective. However, this is unique, and I haven't seen this being done before.